Hey everyone, Joey here, aka Animus, and today as a Patreon request from CP, I'm going to be reviewing the fifth and final 1991 album from Talk Talk, Laughingstock. Talk Talk were a British band with roots in the synth pop and art rock scenes throughout most of the 1980s, though with 1988's Spirit of Eden they moved in a more experimental and idiosyncratic direction, becoming more free-flowing and improvisational. This is the one album of theirs I did find the time to listen to alongside Laughingstock, and I do feel like the two kind of go hand in hand with a very similar structure and approach, though slightly different tones. And even though I found Spirit of Eden to be a very enjoyable and interesting listen, I feel like Laughingstock is the album I'd rather talk about, as it's generally a more developed version of their vision. This album was created with very demanding and unusual recording methods in near darkness, with several musicians just freely improvising, practically deliberately losing track of time, to be edited down into an intricate 40-minute experience. And yes, an experience is, I think, the way this album was intended to be. The person who requested this suggested that I listen to the whole thing start to finish, perhaps in the dark like the album was recorded. I went with a more personally enjoyable route of going on a long walk, but I think it had roughly the same effect, as this is an album that I think requires commitment and attention and patience. With only 6 tracks ranging from 5 to 10 minutes each, a very slow pace and moments of near silence. But if you're willing to get lost in its world, then it's greatly rewarding and a very intriguing record. I feel like it's far too early to even begin to grasp the level of detail that went into this album, rather just talk about the general emotional impression it left on me. And I find that very exciting when I first am introduced to an album where I feel like I haven't properly wrapped my head around it yet. It makes me want to come back to it more and find new details, see if it makes me feel a different way the second time. And I think this album will almost certainly grow on me the more I listen to it. Listening to this album can feel like watching a multi-shaded sunset with clouds swirling around in patterns. It can all appear still, but really everything's slowly but surely shifting so that you're never quite sure what's in front of you, but it's hypnotic nonetheless. At one moment the instruments can feel adrift and wandering, and at the next intricately woven and purposeful. And vocalist Mark Hollis's performance, as well as the way his voice is mixed, makes him feel not like the leader of the band, but a lonely and quiet voice, lost somewhere amid the great landscape that the music paints. The words can be hard to make out just by listening, but when you look into the lyrics on the album, they can be really quite beautiful and abstract and with religious overtones, even with track titles like Myrrhman and Ascension Day. Though perhaps my favourite track on the album, and the one that best exemplifies what I love about the record, is the great nearly 10-minute long post-apocalyptic expanse of a track, After the Flood. It's a brilliant example of how the album builds a sense of enveloping space and atmosphere, with soft emotive organ chords slowly giving way to this harsh and abrasive electronic noise, building discord that threatens to swallow the whole track up before gradually settling back into the same pensive, suspended atmosphere that pervades most of the album, both beautiful and unsettling. Moments like this show just how bold and innovative the album was for its time, and I'm able to see here how this, along with Spirit of Eden, were foundational albums for the budding post-rock genre, many later examples of which I'd already come to love prior to listening to this album. But the fact that on first listen, more than 30 years after this album was released, it still sounded to me like a journey through unfamiliar lands, is a testament to just how creative and risk-taking Laughingstock was. It's without a doubt a demanding and challenging listen, and I can completely understand if it doesn't click with you. In fact, I don't feel like everything on here has fully clicked with me yet, but like I said, I find such a joy in discovering things that feel unfamiliar to me, that I just want to explore even further. So as you probably know, I'm not a huge fan of ratings for albums, though I do choose to give them out for Patreon requested reviews in particular. It's very difficult in this particular case because of my opinion being so likely to change, as I've said, and bearing in mind this album's historical context as well as my current personal enjoyment. But I'd highly recommend Laughingstock. I'm very grateful to the person who introduced it to me, and at the moment I'm feeling around a strong 8.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching, see you next time.